Louisiana Democratic delegates are weighing in on this historic day within their party. Jacob Bradford joins us with details.
Well, hey, Meg, the Democratic National Committee rules say now that President Biden is out, delegates can support anyone that they choose. But two Democratic delegates I spoke with say most of Louisiana's are on the same page, and that is to support the vice president. With news of President Biden not seeking re-election, Louisiana Democratic delegates seem to be in agreement to give the top of the ticket to the vice president.
I think that Louisiana's delegates were strongly supportive of President Biden, and I think that President Biden's endorsement of the vice president, whom was part of the process for which we voted, to be very honest with you, it was always the Biden-Harris ticket. There's no reason to abandon Vice President Harris.
I would hope that we could stick together, but I know Louisiana, I know myself, and I know there will be people who want to strike their own sort of path. But I also don't think like a big battle on the floor of the convention helps anyone but Trump.
Delegate Eugene Green, who is also a city councilman in New Orleans, says if a delegate is looking for someone qualified, to just check the vice president's resume.
She's a former attorney general of the largest state in the country. She's a former U.S. senator, and she's been vice president for 4 years. If you talk about qualifications, I would say that she's pretty qualified.
With the news dropping unexpectedly Sunday, Fox 8 political analyst Mike Sherman says this is just the latest shot in the arm to get voters' attention.
After an assassination attempt, a Republican National Convention, Biden withdrawing, there's so much excitement that's building. I think we're going to see record voter engagement again.
For delegates Mandy Landry, who is a current state representative, and Councilman Green, they've been fielding calls from other delegates, and meetings are already being set up.
There's already been calls and people checking in. I'm a delegate, so people have been checking in, and at least I'm pretty sure all or most of Louisiana delegates will feel that way.
There'll be a lot of meetings between now and then, including Zoom calls, including conference calls and the like, so that we can get in place the strategies that are going to be necessary to make sure that the convention runs smoothly.
Both believe this shakeup could bring a win for the Democrats in just 4 short months.
If the polls are our guide, President Trump was cruising to victory against President Biden. But this race, for Fox 8 viewers, you know my take, swing voters in swing states, there is now a pathway for Kamala Harris or whoever the Democratic nominee is. I think this race is now up for grabs.
Now, Meg, some of the names that are being tossed around to be Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick are Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, California Governor Gavin Newsom, and Kentucky's Governor Andy Beshear. The Democratic National Convention is on August 19th and runs through the 22nd. Meg?